Aquino. Hey, how's it going, folks? We have Draven Aquino and Julia Shotwell. You can't really mess up that name.
Yeah.
Julia. Well, that's it right there. Julia right there. Julia Shotwell.
Well, Mrs. Abrigo likes to say Julia sometimes.
Oh, Julia. Ooh, we're getting kind of like Spanish influence there, huh? Oh, muy bien. All right. She says, oh, and she does, oh, Miss Amelia. Oh, yeah. The Spanish teacher. All right, so folks, check this out. Um, we are your test prep teachers, and let me just make sure that we have this thing going. I think that I can't remember how to.
It says you are sharing your desktop.
No, I know I'm sharing my desktop, but am I recording?
Go up to the top. It should pop down, right?
No, the Snagit is always a funny animal sometimes. Because last time I recorded the whole session and then it didn't record. And I was like, that sucks. But I'll tell you what, here, we'll double it up. Because we're going off of your
That's right. It's
your thing,
my
so
data.
you actually have room, and I never have space.
I have to delete every few weeks.
I hate that.
I know.
That sucks. Anyway, welcome folks, welcome Draven, welcome Julia, and everybody else who's watching the archive. My name is Mr. Dalday.
Hi, I miss you.
And we're going to be your teachers for ACT prep. We are switching it up to do an ACT prep, and the reason for that is because we did SAT prep last time, and the ACT prep is it's kind of become not a more important test, but it's kind of become it's a more important test for high school students now, for 11th graders now at least.
Yeah.
What's going to happen is the state of Hawaii is going to start measuring schools based on their ACT scores. So anyway, we're going to go over for you folks what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks on how we're going to study, and we're going to encourage you to take the ACT coming up. Now, Draven, you're a senior, and Julia, you are a senior? Junior?
A junior, yeah.
You're a junior. Good. That's perfect. So, Julia, your test is going to be paid for you. I believe that all the juniors have their test paid for you. Draven, unless you're on reduced lunch, you got to pay out of your own pocket.
Say love you.
Sorry. And it's good that, Julia, that you're taking it now. Hopefully we can encourage you to take it maybe in April. And the reason being is because if you take it now, actually we're going to talk about this in just a second. So why don't we talk about what we're going to be using, what curriculum we're going to be using, and how the course is going to be mapped out. And then I'll basically just jump back and forth. I'm not the lead teacher here. I'm a co-teacher. She's a co-teacher, so we're going to share the stage here. All right. We're using this curriculum called The Real Guide to ACT, or the Real ACT Practice Book. And it is basically the standard for ACT prep because it's put out by the ACT company. The same company that puts out the test put out this practice book. So we figured, hey, why go with something else? This is the most comprehensive thing. It doesn't necessarily have as much content as I would like, but it does give you 5 different practice tests for you guys to sink your teeth into. And if you guys don't feel like you get even enough tests there, I've found practice tests all the way from 1999 to 2013. All of them. All the old practice tests for those. So if you need more, by all means, jump into it. In fact, I sat down with all the science tests and I did all of the problems from 1999 to 2013.
Don't do that.
Yeah, no, that's because I was a teacher, not when I was a student. This was not when I was a student. I wasn't nearly that crazy. The test and the way our course is going to be kind of broken apart is for the first 5 weeks of class. So today is kind of like this intro class, like, hey, welcome to the thing. Let me tell you about the test. Let me tell you about how to study and what's coming up and how the class works and whatnot. And then 4 weeks after, or for the next 4 weeks after that, we're going to basically be covering the parts of the test. So Ms. G is going to take on the English next week. I'll take on the math the week after. She'll go back to the reading, and then I'll come back and do the science for you guys. So we were jumping back and forth, and then after that, in weeks 6, 7, 8, 9, we're going to give you basically just a bunch of practice tests. Because the best way to do this test, according to this book, is obviously do a bunch of tests. Like, how do you get good at taking a test? You do a bunch of these tests. Cool? So I'm basically going to go through this document, and you can kind of jump in.
Okay.
And you have no problem interrupting me, right?
And if you need a break reading, I can read.
Well, I'm not going to read to them. I hate it when teachers like post something and then read to you.
I'm gonna read it to you.
Okay, she's going to read it to you. All right.
Okay.
About the ACT. All right, so I'm going to start this off by saying, to be honest with you, I actually hate tests. I don't like the concept of tests.
Me same.
I feel like if I sit down with you for a semester and talk to you and interact with you, I can understand how intelligent or how creative and all of that kind of stuff you are. But obviously colleges can't do that for every single student that they're admitting. They can't spend a semester with you. So in order to kind of standardize how they let you in, you have to take this test. And this test, it's not an IQ test. If you don't do well on this test, to be honest with you, don't think that it's because you're dumb at all. You're not dumb. If you don't do well on this test, usually it means it's because you weren't ready to take this test, which I'm kind of saying that in order to do well on the ACT, I've found part of it is you just knowing your stuff. You know your content, you know it really well. But a part of it is you know how to take tests. And there's like these tricks. And this is what I want to give to you as a teacher, is the tricks and the tips in order to go about taking the test and having all of these little tools that you need. And so that's kind of what is the most important part. And the ACT is a little bit different from the SAT. Also, the ACT doesn't test your ability to just spit out facts and whatnot. Like Wikipedia would suck on this test because they know a bunch of facts, but they don't necessarily know how to logically put them together. And I found that the problems in the math and the science side, I can't speak to the English and the reading side, but the math and the science side, it's definitely about just kind of like taking something and synthesizing that information.
Well, especially for the reading section.
Yeah. Maybe the vocab session. Is there even a vocab session on there?
Yes, they do ask about vocabulary, and so one of the things that we're going to go through is, what do you do when you come to a word and you have no clue what it means? How do you break it down and make an educated guess as to what it means?
Yeah, because memorizing the dictionary wouldn't be practical for this test.
Right.
Nor would memorizing the periodic table. That doesn't actually help you. I mean, it helps you in life, and it will help you out with your, advanced chemistry and physics and science classes, but it won't help you on this test. So what we're trying to do is make sure you understand how to study correctly. Now, the first thing we need to do, and here's the thing, is I had a few students who took the SAT test, or test prep thing, and then they forgot to register. And it was like, well, that was kind of a waste. So register for the ACT test. You have an ACT test coming up in February, and the deadline to register for it is tomorrow. However, I wouldn't recommend doing that.
No, don't do that.
There's no real good advantage. It costs like about $120 a pop for these tests. So don't just spend your money and just be like, well, I'll just take it 3 times this year. Yeah, well, unless you have $375 to dump out, then how's about just wait and I'll teach you what you need and you can give me the $375. So don't do that either. Well, I mean, you can if you want. All right, you got one coming up in February, but I think the one that you might want to check out is the one coming up in April 12th.
Yeah.
That would be a good one, mainly because our class finishes around March, the middle of March, and so that way it will give you a few weeks to study on your own, and then boom, you can take it while it's still fresh. And I think that that's probably a really good idea. It's a good idea for you to take it as a junior and whatnot. April sounds good. Yeah. Just make sure you register by March 7th. And I'm in the process of putting in your class the link to say register for the ACT, register for the ACT, and I'm gonna put it every single week until March 7th. And then after that, I'm just like, well, I told you.
And if you have questions about registration or fees or that, contact Mrs. Nakasone, because she can help you in terms of what funding might be available through the school, and all of that. So any registration questions should be directed to her.
So I actually just talked to her, and you're absolutely right. There might be some kind of funding that we haven't found yet. But for the most part, as I understand, juniors are going to get it paid for. And the seniors, unless you have free reduced lunch, you're
So
gonna
for
have
the
to do it out of
juniors,
your
do
pocket.
they? So like for Julia, for example,
But I
would
think that they might
Julia-
only have one shot.
Would Julia have to register herself and then get reimbursed through the school?
See, that would definitely be a Mrs. Nakasone question.
Right. So for that kind of stuff, contact Mrs. Nakasone and say, "Hey, I want to take this. I'm in the class. Do I have to pay for it ahead of time and then give the school a receipt, or is the school going to say, here you go, here's the money?"
Dude, the test cost have significantly gone down since I remember taking it. Like, was it $36?
No.
That's what this says. Well, Draven, apparently you kind of lucked out too.
But the reason that it's dropped so much is because now they have
It's
so
much
many
more
more
popular
people
and whatnot.
taking it.
Yeah.
And schools would, like, if schools are going to pay for this, they would go crazy if they had to pay $100-something.
Well, yeah, so anyway, Victor's talking to me and he says, "Hi, Mr. Dalton, did I get your email?" And yes, I got your email. Show up for class. Right? He's in our class, right? No.
No.
I don't know. All right, never mind.
No.
I was going to say, Victor, I thought you were supposed to show up for the ACT class.
He's graduating already.
Yeah, Draven's graduating. Anyway, the dangerous thing about us tag team lecturing is we're going to get off onto a bunch of tangents. This is probably going to be the only time where you actually have both me and her on the same screen or the same, same thing. But it's fun. I like doing this. Let's see. So that's talking about the test. Now the test location depends on, it really depends on you, because obviously, Julia, you wouldn't take it on Oahu. You would take it on Big Island. And so what you have to do is you just have to look up where the test location is, and you can just kind of click here. And by the way, this website that I'm clicking through, I'm giving you the link to. In fact, I give it to you every week to remind you to go there. And you can just kind of look up exactly where the test is based off of where you live. Cool? I looked at the locations. Yep. Sounds good. The high school. They usually do it inside of like a cafeteria. Alright, so register for the ACT. We're good there. This section is talking about when you want to take it, and I would recommend taking it in your junior year. I would recommend taking it towards the end of your junior year, and this way you have your scores in. The schools actually see the scores, and it's fine if you retake it to get a better score, but at least you kind of know, oh, dude, I need to do a lot of studying, or I'm kind of where I'm at. I know what I need to work on. You know what I mean? And that way, in your senior year, before December, you can take another ACT. And the reason why I say before December is because if you take it before December, then those go on your transcripts, which you will send out to your colleges. Draven, if you're taking the ACT now, the transcripts that your colleges are receiving, because they're going to be expecting them pretty soon, are not going to have the ACT on it, but then you can always change your score after. So it's still worth for you to take it, Draven. Maybe you took it already. Did you take the ACT before? Yeah. You also want to do, so Draven, you took it. Maybe, and what you do is you send it up, and then you can always submit a change test form.
And something else to consider, so like for example, I knew I wanted to go to Northwestern for college, and so they have early decision. And so I made sure that I took the ACT and the SAT before, at the end of my junior year, so that I was sure that I could submit it to them early decision. Because if there's a school where you know you really, really, really want to go there and it's very competitive, then you can do early decision, because then the college knows that you're serious about going there if you are doing all of this to apply early decision. So that's another benefit of taking it your junior year, is that if it's early enough and you know you want to do early decision admission, you can do that.
All right, and then also don't wait till the last day before registering for the test to register for the test. In fact, as my kind of secret is, I told you that the deadline on the on our website was March 6th. It's a day before, but I'm not going to really highlight that. So it's March 6th. March 6th is the due date. Turn it in by March 6th. The reason why is because sometimes it takes a long time to set up these web accounts and all of this kind of stuff, and it's just kind of a pain. So go through it earlier than later. There's no disadvantage to signing up, now.
Yeah, you can do it today. It's not going to tell you no, you have to
cheaper.
wait.
It's not going to get cheaper as the sale goes. It's not going to be on sale or something like that. So sign up for it now. The earlier you can. In fact, usually it's less when you sign up early, but that's not the case either. It's $36. It's not going to be that bad. What should you bring to your? So you need to make sure that you are printing your admission ticket and make changes to your profile and all of that kind of stuff, and that's stuff you should have. If you have some kind of disability or special needs or whatnot, the test is really good about taking that into account. You just have to make sure that the test knows about that, and in registering you can kind of say, I have these special needs and special accommodations that need to be taken into account. So let's see. What do you want to bring with you? You need a number 2 pencil. 2. Sure, bring 2 number 2 pencils. That would be good. And a good eraser. I'm a big fan of marking up my test book. My test book looks terrible after I'm done with it. And when I took the test, they allowed me to do that. They allowed me to say, you can go and mark it whatever you want. We're just throwing these away.
Right.
So you go in and mark everything and then erase a whole bunch of stuff, and I needed a lot of that kind of stuff. Bring your admission ticket with you, which is what you'll get after your registration. Bring a photo ID and bring a permitted calculator. The calculator that you can use, I think it's like the TI-80s, anything TI-80, you're good. When you get into the TI-90s or anything with a QWERTY keyboard, that's something that looks like a regular computer keyboard, no good.
You can bring the 89?
I believe that when I brought in my 89 when I was taking it,
Wow.
It was good.
Don't bring a puppy. They won't let you bring a puppy in. If you need help printing your admissions ticket, you can email it to me, and then when we have our face-to-face classes at the school, I can get it to you, or Julia, if you need help with a printer, just let me know, but you're usually fine with printers.
Yeah, and then you won't be allowed to have your phone out. On some tests, I remember when we did the practice test, we actually had to leave our phone in a locker outside, so just bring your phone with you, but don't think that you can use the calculator on your phone. Like, that's just not allowed. And the reason being is because what you can do is start emailing out the test or talking about the test to other people or chatting. That's something that they don't want to do, especially since, they want to try to keep this all a big secret. What to expect on a test date? How long is the ACT test? Do you guys know?
It's like 3 days.
Too long. Dude, there's some physics exam. I've had to take some physics exam that was over the course of like a week.
Yeah, but ACT is shorter than SAT.
Yeah, it is.
Oh man, when I took the SAT, that was never ending.
Well, see, the thing is here. Look, here's the bottom line is These tests are as long as all heck. They are long, way longer than they should be. They are longer than not any, but they are longer than most of the tests you've ever taken before. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that a part of the ACT, especially for the ACT, I feel, is endurance. You know, if you can just discipline yourself to sit down for 3 hours and concentrate, you'll actually do better on the test than someone who's smarter than me and it's just like, you know, can't sit down and do it. So I don't think it's 4 to 5 hours. I think it's going to be about 4 hours.
I mean, from like getting there to finishing,
Okay, 4 to 5 hours, but you're not testing for 4 to 5 hours.
No.
I think you're testing for 3 hours and something minutes.
Yeah.
And it's not continuous too. You're going to have a 15-minute break in the middle, or you should, at least. It's really up to the test admin to decide on that. But what we're going to try to do in this class is train you to endure through a long test. So sometimes what we'll be doing is we'll actually be giving you opportunities to take the whole test, and I would recommend actually recreating the scenario of how you would do if you were to actually sit down and take the test. Because what that's doing is it's training you to handle it. And I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to teach you how to sit down for 3 hours and just, you know, work a test for 3 consecutive hours. I'm going to teach you how to sit down. If you need a break, actually take a break. If you need to kind of like, you know, have a mental, you know, break, then do that. Because that's the key to me. Is it's not an endurance test like I can outlast you for 3 consecutive hours. It's I can concentrate for 3 hours because I know when to take my breaks.
And I mean, do what you know works for you. So Mr. Dalday and I will teach you tips and tricks, some things that work for us. But like, for example, my sister and I are totally different when it comes to test taking. So what I would do, she would get 0% on her test. It would be way too distracting for her, and vice versa. So do what you know works for you, and in a way you have an advantage because of the type of school that you go to now. You've kind of learned how you think, how you kind of set up your environment, when you need to take mental breaks, because that's what you do every day. So do what works for you. And if I know some of the stuff in the book, I'm looking at it right now, and it's not what works for me in a testing situation. So like when I'm in test mode, it's on the previous page it said, you know, you're going to have 10 to 15 minute breaks, get up and stretch and do all this stuff. No, when I'm in mental test mode, I sit down, I take my test. I don't want to get up and walk around. I'm going to stay in the room. But for other people, if they don't do that, they're not going to do well. So do what works for you.
Yeah, because I'm just the opposite. I recommend bringing food with you.
Yeah.
And wearing lots of layers of clothing, because I tend, like, if I get too hot or too cold, it messes with me. So if I have layers, like if I have a big snow jacket on, then I'm either hot or cold. But if I have a bunch of layers, like a sweater and then a jacket over that or whatever, I can take that off, put it on, and kind of adjust my climate. And then I bring a lot of food, because you can't eat food in the test, but you can eat food in the breaks. So, you have a break, you can eat a little bit. But I mean, don't bring you bring spam musubi, but don't bring like McDonald's full on like plate lunch or whatever. Actually, McDonald's doesn't have. Don't bring L&L plate lunch, because I mean that's not needed.
Don't have a 4-course meal.
Yeah.
And again, do what works for you. So like, I know if I eat and then try and do a mental task, my blood sugar is all messed up and I just want to nap, and I'm not going to do well on the test. So do what works for you.
And I do well as I snack. So we're just.
Well, then eat before you take the test.
No, I eat before I take the test, and I eat during the break.
No, she said, what if a 4-course meal works for her?
Yeah. And that's one of the things that they're saying. All right, so now we're gonna talk about getting ready for the test, and we got another half hour to finish this off, and then we'll be done.
Yeah.
This class will be done. I do have a homework assignment for you that I didn't run by you, by the way, but it's a diagnostic test. I actually do want you to try a test out. I gave you an O test, and I want you to do all the odd problems. do it at your leisure. You don't need to sit down and like, okay, I've got 45 minutes, blah blah blah. Do it, finish the test. I just really want to see, and I'll tell you what, I won't even grade this and put it in the grade book. We're going to grade this and look over it and see where it is your weaknesses are. But that's really what this is we're trying to diagnose like how you are as a student and where we need to really focus on. So click on that one. Do the even problem or the odd problems only. Cool? Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
All right. So getting ready for the test. On the test day coming up, selecting test options. Oh yeah. Is there an advantage for taking the ACT Plus?
Okay, so if you are planning to become an English major, or you are going to have some sort of major that would tie into English, so like journalism or something like that, many schools in that case will require that you've taken ACT Plus writing. That's not the case across the board though. So for the schools where you're planning to attend, look at their admission requirements for the program that you'd like to get into and see if they require it. Like even at Northwestern, they did not require the writing, but I was going into a different program at that point, so it didn't matter. So just think about your goals. If writing is somewhere in your goals, then yes, you should take that writing test. But if you're not planning on being an English major, then there's really no need.
That for the AP. How does it ACT compare to AP?
It's actually gonna be easier, Julia.
Significantly easier.
Yeah, because for AP they are looking to see, very complex knowledge. You're going to be applying all the same sort of skills that you would have in AP. So, if you are planning to do, yeah, exactly. If you're planning to do the ACT Plus writing, let me know, and because we can go over that, but...
well, that would be good. So AP versus ACT. ACT is really testing to see whether or not you will survive in college and get into college. AP is testing to see whether or not you've already finished enough curriculum for the first year of college.
Right.
So that kind of tells you the difference between how hard those tests are going to be.
And I'm telling you right now, the AP class that you are taking with me right now, Julia, is harder than most first year English programs. So you should do okay on both tests.
So hopefully that would be good. We're also talking about, well, here's what I was thinking, is we weren't planning on doing we weren't planning on spending a week on writing. We were planning on doing a English, math, reading, science, and there was an optional writing, and we weren't planning on taking that option.
But Julia, if it's something that you want to do, we can work on that separately. Yeah. That'll be fine.
Well, what I was going to say is, for those of you, why don't you as students, and this is going to be your homework, although this is really just for your benefit, check out the schools that you really want to go to. If they require an ACT writing test, and if there's a few of you who that's going to be a requirement of, then we can change it up, and we can add in a writing part. And if it's like only one or two of you students, then you can work individually with Mrs. G, and that will work out too. We cool? All right. Come on, Javen, I need to say that you're cool. That way I know that you're hearing me. All right, good. And that's the thing. I do a lot of mental checks. Since I don't get this, since I can't see you like this, I always ask, are you cool? Can you understand this? Am I making sense? So make sure you just kind of shoot me those little quick messages. All right, registering. We talked about registering. What I would do... One thing that I always kind of do is check to see which colleges I want to make sure to send this to. Because what you're going to do is, in the test, when you're in the test, they're actually going to say, well, which colleges, or maybe it's in the registration. In the registration, they're going to ask you, which colleges do you want us to send this test to?
Yeah.
And we're only going to send it to 2 of them, or 3 of them, and then if you want 4, 5, or 6 colleges, you're going to have to pay.
Right.
You know what I mean? So choose the top 3 colleges you want, and put them in.
Yeah.
And I think that you can request after the fact. I mean, I know that you can request after the fact.
But you have to pay for it.
But you'll have to pay for that, and just
Right.
keep that in mind. So choose those before you're registering, which colleges you want. All right, at the test, bring your photo ID. We covered this, didn't we? Oh yeah, I guess we went up. All right, getting ready for the test. Mental preparation. What's the best way to prep for the ACT test? I think it comes in two parts. I think first, you got to be solid on the curriculum that you're learning. And all of the curriculum that you're finishing off as a junior, that's about where they're testing.
For sure.
They don't really test anything that you would have to learn as a senior. Like, there's no pre-calc on the test at all. There's no trig on the test.
And really,
Yeah.
senior level English is just exposure to different stories and author. Well, I mean, Julia, you're already in AP, so you're basically taking beyond that. And Draven, you've already taken 12th grade English, so both of you are fine. And thinking of the other students in the course, I mean, the materials that you've taken already are going to prepare you well for English.
And the second part is, so the first part is getting good at the content, but the second part is learning how to take the test. And that's kind of what the point of our class is. So, I mean, that's a terrible thing to say about the test is in order to do well at it, you just have to know how to do good on a test. Or at least half of doing well on a test is doing good on a test. But, I don't know, that's the way it is. It's a test. A test means that we need to measure your intelligence in a system, and so if you can figure out that system, then you can do well on these tests a lot of times. That's just the way it is. And you know what? Maybe that might not be the perfect way, but it's definitely the way the universities and colleges measure things, and it's the way that the workforce measures things a lot of times too. So hey, why don't we teach you how to do well on a system and teach you the content as well? Actually, I'm going to leave the teaching the content up to your regular teachers. I'm going to teach you how to, we're going to teach you how to do well on the system. And a little bit of content, I'm sure. All right. Study time. I think that you're good. I would recommend that you do independent study time as well as just what our class is. Our class is going to, keep you on your toes and whatnot, but if you want more, do more. Like don't think that what we're offering is like all the resources. I think what we're trying to do is we don't want to blow you away because we know that your other classes are really important and you have other stuff. So we're not giving you a huge amount of homework. But we also, don't want you to take this lightly. Cool?
Yeah.
All right. I love how the book goes into this about physical preparation. It talks about, hey, if you exercise, keep exercising. And if you don't exercise, don't worry about it.
Actually, that is a good point, though, because, so let's say you're reading through this and diet is important and they're talking about routines and things like that. So if you normally don't eat breakfast in the morning, then don't make the day you're going to take the test the day you're going to start eating breakfast. Stick to your routine. Because if you start messing with your routines and you're like, well, it says I should eat, maybe I should do that, you're gonna mess with how you do. So don't do that.
And then Julia, for you who's eating a 4-course meal for breakfast, apparently, that's a big breakfast. You might want to cut back on that a little bit. But I'm just saying, if you're eating a 4-course meal for breakfast every day, then have your 4-course meal by all means.
Yeah, I mean, if you normally eat breakfast, then eat breakfast. If you don't, then don't. Like, all that other stuff. If you normally exercise, maintain that level of exercise. If you don't, well, then you should start now and then maintain that level of exercise. But don't make the day before the ACT the day you're going to be like, I'm going to hike 27 miles. It's going to be super fun.
Right. Because on the ACT, you're just going to be like, all right, the answer is...
You're going to be like, I don't care.
All right, we cool with that? So, I mean, what we're saying is keep your routine. But you know what? One of the things I always say is rest. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I have
rest.
When I was in college, I was going to sleep at 2 every day, like at 2 in the morning at least. I mean, that was the earliest. It's just because that's the way I was. I was a night owl. But whenever I took a test, I said, all right, 12 o'clock is my day, is my time. In fact, I actually calculated it out, and I said 7.5 hours is exactly how much sleep I'm going to get. So I calculated out when the test was, and I slept 7.5 hours before that. That's just my weird, quirky things. But I always made the time to go to bed earlier, like
Yeah.
significantly earlier, but not like at 6 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah, but definitely get enough sleep, and sleep is a cumulative thing. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I make your assignments due at 11 p.m. instead of midnight, because sleep is really important for all of us. So make sure in the weeks leading up to the ACT, I know you're going to have a lot on your plate, but be sure you're getting a lot of sleep, because it really does help you to refresh your mind.
Yeah, Julia, I used to be like that, and now what I say is sleep. Sleep is kind of a blessing that you get when you're a parent. You can't find much of it. So, I hate to say it, but apparently staying up till 2 has really trained me well to be a good parent.
I don't know. I go to bed at 9. I'm exhausted.
I know. I'm just so tired nowadays.
I go for a run and then I'm like, all right, bed.
All right. Test taking strategies. We're going to take practice tests. We're going to do 5 of them at least this quarter. You can do more. There are many, many more to take. And if you want, I can try to gather all the resources for you if you'd be willing to do that. Don't be sarcastic. It actually is kind of fun. To me, I don't know. When I was your age, I was listening to like Rage Against the Machine, and I was thinking, okay, how can I like learn the system to tear it down from the inside? And then to me, taking a standardized test was learning the system. Like I was like getting good at the system.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think at the school we kind of are good about not making everything about the system, but yet we teach you how to work well within the system.
All right, now pacing yourself is really important because a lot of people can solve a test in like 2 days, but can you solve the test in the time limit that they give you? And even if you can work really fast, can you do it? Can you work really fast without making mistakes? And if you work really slow, then can you speed it up without making mistakes? For the math part, we're going to probably come up and say, all right, this is how we want to break it apart, and this is how many minutes you should spend on it. I usually tend not to freak out on it. I think that what I do is I just kind of go through it as best as I can. If I feel like I'm spending too much time on something, I don't have a timer there to say, oh, I got to move on to the next one. But I'll move on to the next one, or I'll answer it, and I'll write lots of notes to myself. What I do always when I take a test, because I can't necessarily say that they'll allow you to write inside the test booklet, but when they say, okay, you can start, immediately, before I even open the test, I write down the number, I write, get an extra piece of scratch paper, and I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up till 50 on the test. And then I like write down my answers when I'm writing it as a kind of a double thing, and I write notes to myself. Or I put a little question mark. A question mark means I need to come back to it. Or like a happy face means I'm really good with this one. Or a sad face means I'm like, I've answered it, but it's not that great.
Always make sure that you make a note, like circle or put an arrow or something if you're going to skip an answer and come back to it. I had a friend in high school who forgot to do that for one answer.
And then everything was shifted,
at the beginning of the test. And so all the answers going down were wrong because they were shifted. And he didn't realize it until there was like 30 seconds left for that section. And so make sure, like, whatever, make your own system, but whatever the system is, make sure you follow it, because you don't want to put in all that time and energy and then do something like that and it messes up everything.
Well, which is why I take a scratch paper and I write down all the problems, because I don't know, is the ACT going to be a computer-based test now for them? I don't know. Draven, when you took it last, was it computer? No. Okay, all right.
I think eventually it'll be computer, but I don't think it is yet.
It's just in the more recent tests that I've taken, they're all computer based.
Right.
So
well, all the Pearson-based tests are
Yeah.
computer-based.
yeah, like the Praxis that I took was computer based. All this stuff is computer based.
The National Board Certification results computer.
So this is a technique I've developed since I've been taking a bunch of computer based tests. But if you have like an actual test where you're like with a booklet and they let you write in the booklet, then by all means, you know, mark that booklet up. They're throwing it away after that anyway, so it's not like, you know, it's not like it's going to mess up the next person. Have no problem writing inside that thing. All right. Know the directions. I like this. Don't wing it. Don't go in and not read the directions. And the most beautiful thing about it is I've always found, and I think that I've even read this in the books where every year the ACT puts out the Preparing for ACT book, and we'll get you a copy of that. But read the directions really well now, because when you take the test, they're the exact same directions. So you can skip them in the test if you read them now.
Just be sure, but do look at the directions, especially in English, because you don't want it to be like you think they're asking you for a synonym and they want an antonym, because they do switch back and forth with that. So make sure you read which one they want, because you don't want to be answering the wrong one because you know the answer and you just didn't read the directions.
And don't spend your time solving out the example problems. I've seen many people do that.
Yeah,
Don't. So dumb.
Don't answer the example problems.
They're example problems, okay? And they're answered for you already, too. So, I mean, I don't know why people are like, I'm going to get a better score because I did all the problems and the example problems, sucker. And I just be like, yeah, sure. You just wasted 5 minutes. All right. Read carefully and thoroughly. Interestingly enough, I can't stress this enough for math and science. Like, you would figure that read carefully and thoroughly it's an English thing. I think in general, math and science students would do better if they did better in their English classes. Like if they read more carefully, they would do better on all the tests they take.
Yeah, don't be like, oh, I'm done with an English section. I can turn off my English brain and not read anything.
Yeah, no, seriously. You want to know a secret? Is the science test is really just a glorified reading test.
No, he's absolutely right. Very much so. Especially for science, just read carefully and you will get every single answer right on the ACT. It's very much a reading test.
Yeah, it's a glorified reading test with a science flavor.
Yeah. Yeah, the focus of what you're reading is science-based.
But even the math stuff is like, I remember I would have to like, because I can do math with the best of them, but if you like present it to me, I'm just like, well, what does it really mean? What are they asking me to do? You know, that's where I spend most of my time. So make sure you read everything carefully. Because a lot of times, and they love doing this, is which is the answer most likely not? Okay.
Yes, that is true, Julia. There's more reasoning on the SAT for all of the sections. It's not just reading. But the ACT, in fact, one of the test prep classes that I took, they didn't even go over science. They're just like, read the end.
No, I think science is definitely something to go over.
No. We will hear it. We
Yeah.
should do it. But I'm just saying that, like, yes, you are correct that. Oh wait, no. The reasoning isn't the ACT more reasoning. No, the SAT is the one that has more reasoning. Well, in terms of the questions that are being asked, but I know what you're saying. In the content, yes. In the questions, no. I'll explain what that means when we go over actual tests, and I can show you what that means.
All right. Harder to easier questions. For the most part, and I always get these two mixed up. I can't remember whether I think that the ACT has their questions just hammer-jang all over the place.
Yeah.
It's the harder questions aren't at the end.
It's not adapted.
And the easier questions aren't at the beginning. It's just like mixed up. So, and then for the SAT, that's different. You can expect the easier ones to be at the beginning and the harder ones to be at the end. So if you get a very hard question at the beginning and you're thinking, oh, this, like what I told you as an SAT skill is I said towards the end, don't get tricked by the gimmies because they're not gimmies because they're going to be hard. Well, that's not the case with ACT. It's just all over the place. So you don't know whether or not this is supposed to be a hard one or an easy one. So just be careful on all of the tests, things that you have. Is that the same for English and reading?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, they mix it all up. All right, for multiple choice, there's a big difference between ACT and SAT in terms of how they're graded. If you're taking the SAT, I've always told you not to guess. Don't guess if you don't know any of the answers. Because if you just make a shot in the dark guess, they mark off a point off from you. The ACT is different. The ACT says there is no penalty for wrong answers. They only mark you correct for right answers. So you could guess, although guessing across the board is guessing blindly across the board is not as good as if you can eliminate an answer.
Right.
And this is true for the SAT or ACT.
Or just standardized tests in general.
Right. If you can eliminate, I always say that if there's 4 questions, or 4 options, if you can eliminate at least one, then guessing is fair game. Obviously, you would want to, the more you can eliminate, the better you can get. You know, if you can eliminate 2, then hey, you got a 50-50 shot, which is totally great. So, try, if it's a problem that's really too hard for you to get the answer, then try finding the dumb answers, because there's always dumb answers in there. I mean, not dumb answers. There's always dumb options in there. Like that's obviously wrong. You're asking me to solve for 5, and the option you gave me is like square root. You know.
3 plus 3 isn't squirrel.
Yeah, 3 plus 3 is not a squirrel. Yeah, Julia, be careful. Guessing can be your best friend. And I wouldn't even encourage guessing on the ACT unless it's like 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
30 seconds left, you don't have any time, just go through it. Guess it. Go for it. That's fine. But I wouldn't even really like have guessing in my brain, even if I was taking the ACT, because I really want to try to get effort into at least eliminating one choice. Because if I can do that, that ups my percentage. I mean, if you look at it purely from a mathematical standpoint, if you can eliminate at least one, it ups your percentage for guessing that. Cool? But then I do reserve 30 seconds at the end for just like, oh, crud, I didn't even get the last 10 of these problems. Everything is, C or something like that. By the way, did you use that myth? Everything is C? Like, if you don't know, answer C?
We were told, when in doubt, choose B. But it says, when in doubt, select the longest or shortest alternative. And there have actually been studies done that have shown that the longest alternative tends to be the correct answer more often than the shorter alternative.
In English, I was always told it's the shortest one that's right. The longest one is like long-winded and not really correct.
I mean, it kind of depends for what it is. But usually the longer ones have more information. I mean, obviously read it, and if the long one doesn't make sense, but if you aren't sure at all, I don't know. My default letter was always B.
Look, the bottom line is we're just saying eliminate. If you can eliminate, and then that's the best way. If you have to guess something, the reason why I was always told is D or B, it doesn't really matter, but don't just go like make some kind of pattern, right? Like that's why I always told, keep with something consistent. But really, it doesn't really matter, because if you're guessing, then you're just guessing. There's no advantage to, and I bet you, and I don't know exactly how they write the test, but I'm sure that they don't say, well, we're going to make these really hard ones the answer C, or B. That's a secret, by the way. So, I mean, they just make the questions, and since they're putting it in random order anyway, no one really knows. So, guess, go for it, guess, but if you can eliminate, that's always way better than guessing. All right, changing your answer. Some people say that your first inclination is the best. Some people's studies have shown that actually changing your answer is good.
Every time I've ever changed an answer, it was wrong. I mean, do what you know, again, works for you. I know that when I change answers, they're wrong. So I don't do it because I'm wrong.
My thing is math, and the bottom line is if you can prove that your answer's wrong, then it's wrong.
Well, obviously, like if I did.
So I mean, that's
Math
the point. Is the beauty of math is I can go in and check the work, and if I check the work and hey, it's wrong, then I'm just like, okay, well, this is totally not the right
So
answer.
maybe English, go with your gut. Math, check your work.
Well, I mean, everything check your work, but math. I mean, the bottom line is like I go with my gut, and if I need to change my answer, then I do like, well, what's justifying me to change this answer, and I'll work it out mathematically. Oh, this is totally the wrong answer. Let me change it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't really have a problem with changing my answer, because I can check it. But I mean, if it's like, oh, it's either this or either this, and I really have no idea which one, well, I guess at that point you're guessing.
Right.
But go with your gut feeling on which one. You know what I mean? Because even in math, you can even ballpark figure the answer. Like, how fast did that guy throw? You know, how fast did that guy throw the tennis ball? And then you calculated it out, and it turns out to be one option is 4,000 miles per hour. No. Baseball pitchers pitch at 100 miles per hour, and that's like super professional guys. So unless this dude is Superman, you know, stay away from 4,000 miles per hour. But hopefully you would have eliminated that question as the dumb answer. All right. Check your work. Checking your work is God's gift to test taking for math. That's what I found. In fact, I could probably... The techniques I'm going to teach you is going to be how to check your work and how to cheat by checking your work and do the math without actually having to do math. So checking your work is super important. Use your calculator. My son, Benjamin, he took the third grade HSA. This was a couple of years ago. And he did poorly the first time. And he was so devastated because I told him I would buy him a Lego set after he was done with the test if he passed it. And he did poorly on the test. And I asked him, well, did you use your calculator? And he said, no, I never touched my calculator, even though the calculator was sitting right next to him. And I told him before the test, make sure you use your calculator. And he said, because I thought using the calculator would be cheating. So the calculator's not cheating. They gave it to you. Use it. Learn to use it. Learn to use it good. All right? Don't think that like you're a better mathematician because you did the test without a calculator, whereas the other dude did the test with the calculator. Because you know what? It's the same score, and then underneath it, they don't have a little subtitle that says this person got 100 and did it without a calculator. They're just going to basically give them both the same score. Actually, I think the person without the calculator would probably be at the disadvantage.
And you're going to be, you have to remember you're mentally going to become tired. And so you want to be sure that you use the tools that you have to your advantage, because the longer you do the test, the more your mind gets kind of tired and worn out. So use it to help you, especially as the test continues on, because it is helpful. It'll help you avoid a silly mistake that you could have caught if you use those tools rather than just working it out.
Yeah, there's no advantage to doing something in your head. I guess there is. I do it in my head. I use a calculator and I do it in my head to just kind of verify that I did the calculation somewhat right. Obviously, the calculator is correct, right? But I also read the problem and I do it in my head to just get a ballpark figure of what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? Because calculator, I can easily, press a time symbol instead of a plus symbol on accident. So I try to do both. All right. Speaking of which, talking about like fatigue and whatnot, I'm just going to say the science test, I think, is like the easiest part of the test, but there's a reason why they put it in the back of the test.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they take it and make that the last thing. It's because if you are on your A game, you would kill this part. So we're going to put it at the back when you're all tired and just frustrated and ready to get out of the test, and you're like, this is done, I'm going, boom, everything's C. And that's what most people do. That's why most people just themselves for the science test because I mean they didn't they don't have that endurance or they don't know how to take the break and get that rest or for you they got out and took a rest and now they're not back in the game. So you know what I mean? So that's what we're really going to need to teach you guys, how to sit down and take these 3-hour tests. And then the last thing is have a panic plan. And I don't say panic plan because you never should panic in these tests. But have a plan to know what you're going to do at 1 minute before the test is done, 30 seconds before the test is done. I usually reserve the last 5 to 10 minutes for reviewing my work. And I reserve the last 1 minute for answering anything that I didn't answer.
Yeah, and then making sure, like if you change your answer, that the other answer is erased completely so that the Scantron can read it properly. Make sure that if I circled any that I skipped, that I at least put something in there. Yeah, like...
Because they'll burn you for that, too. If you like, I have been burned for that, where like I'll answer something, and then like I won't erase it completely. And I've even run a bunch of Scantrons as an educator. I administer a lot of tests. So I've run a bunch of people's Scantrons through, and I've looked at their tests, and I'm like, that's the right answer. However, they answered 2 vowels.
Right.
When I could see that it's erased, but the computer couldn't tell.
Yeah, just make sure that if you erase, and make sure you have a good eraser, because you don't want to get there on test day and find out it's a dried out eraser and it's not going to erase anything because you can't just like cross it out.
Because the pencil's 40 years old and the eraser's black.
Right. Yeah, you don't want that to happen. That'd be terrible.
Yeah. So, all right, we cool with this? Do you guys know what your homework is? What is it? What is your homework? There's 2 things. I'll give you a hint. I'll put up the diagnostic test. There we go. Diagnostic test and diagnostic test. Yes, also register for the ACT. That's your homework.
Yes.
I'm not giving you credit for that or anything, but I'm just saying you should register now. And do the odd problems only for the diagnostic test. Have that ready for us by the time we have class. I think what we'll do is we'll put up a Dropbox so you guys can put it in there. As far as the format for that thing goes, to be honest with you, I would just print it out and circle the answers and scan it. Or maybe, since that scanning like 40 pages would be a little bit redundant or too much, make an Excel file and label it 1, 3, 5, label the numbers and then put your answer. If you could do that, that would be great. Excel file it and then put that into the Dropbox. Cool? All right.
You and your Excel files.
You don't use Excel? What would you do? Like Word file?
Yeah, why not?
Word file is good. It's just now if I do an Excel file, I can drop it into
Google Doc. I don't know.
No, but I could drop it into the thing and then just have it grade the thing for me, so we can tell what problems it did wrong. It doesn't matter to me. You can use Word if you want. All right. We good? Julia, let me just say that it's a pleasure to be your teacher for the first time. I'm excited. I've heard a lot about you. And Draven, it is an honor to be your teacher once again because I love your bushy hair. It's so cool. And those of you who didn't show up and are watching the archive, show up to class next time.
And next time is a face-to-face class. So show up.
Yeah, and the reason why the classes are at weird times is because I'm teaching a class at a certain time and she's teaching her class at a certain time.
It's our WebEx schedules.
So whenever you're meeting up with her, it's most likely going to be at 11. And whenever you're meeting up with me, it's most likely going to be at 9. And always have your homework finished before class because we go over homework in class. So it's not like you can turn this stuff in late. Cool? We'll do,
Yeah.
FaceTime or...
I'll have my iPad and I'll just call you, Julia.
Oh, okay. So you're going to do a FaceTime? I'll probably do a WebEx with her because I don't have an iPad here with me. I got the Samsung tablet.
What about the school one?
School one I leave at home. My wife uses it.
That's why you have it, for school.
All right, fine. I'll bring it in. But like, wife, you don't get to use the iPad today.
I have an extra one if you need it too.
Yeah, I know. You got like 3.
All right.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. Alright, let me just figure out how to pause, because I still think the Snagit is running. So we'll have it on 2, and actually what I'd rather have is the Snagit go, and then I'll upload that to YouTube, and the reason being is because next time, like if we do it on the archive, you have to delete it eventually.
Right.
And even if we did the archive and saved it all the way through, the next class won't be able to see the old archives. So let's see, Snagit, keyword shortcuts for Mac. There was a quit function I've forgotten how to type in. There we go. All right. Control Shift.
Thank you.
uh,
Oh, sorry.
No, it's Control Shift Command S. Man. Control Shift Command S.
Isn't it Option Shift Command?
Option Shift Command